astrologer, and I'm back with the rest of my Astrology 201 shows. I hope you've enjoyed the previous shows. If you missed Astrology 101, you can get it on YouTube, and it will bring you current, because this series that I'm doing now deals with forecasting. And if you would lessons, I hope you're enjoying them. Okay, we have already covered Saturn, the planet of reality, as it circles the zodiac, as it triggers planets in your own birth chart. We've also talked about the quick-moving planets, the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and Jupiter. So you're up to date on that. We talked last time about Saturn, which is reality and seriousness and responding to your abilities. Well, today we're going to talk about two more planets, the planet Uranus and the planet Neptune. And these are part of the slower moving planets that determine your karmic group, and they're the generational planets. And because they move so slowly, they have more of a lasting impact. So let's talk about the planet Uranus. It's one of my favorite planets because it rules astrology, for goodness sake. Uranus is called the awakener. I call it the rebel, where whenever it triggers anything in your birth chart, whether it's the midheaven, the ascendant, the nadir, the seventh house, cusp, these are major aspect places. They're called the angles of the chart. And major events occur during those times. So let's just start, as I always like to do, with Uranus in the 12th house. When you've got Uranus sitting in your 12th house, now I'm not talking about Uranus in your birth chart, I'm talking about the Uranus that's traveling around right now. Uranus has an 84-year cycle, which means it returns to its natal place in your chart when you're 84 years old. Now, years ago, people said, well, I'll never have a Uranus return. Well, we're living longer and we're living better. And many of us know people who have had a Uranus return. So let's just pretend that at some point in time, Uranus returns to its natal place in your chart. And I'm going to talk about that in just 1 minute. Well, Uranus in your 12th house, this is the house of the subconscious mind. It's also behind the scenes activities. And so you're feeling rebellious, but you're not able to put your finger on why, perhaps, and nobody knows it. When Uranus crosses your ascendant and moves into your first house, you become absolutely magnetic. Uranus on your first house liberates you. Your clothing style changes. Your energy changes. You walk into a room and people look at you like they've never seen you before, and you stop and say, what's wrong? Why are they looking at me? It's because you are more magnetic than you have ever been. Remember, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So if you go to an astrologer and he or she says, well, Uranus is on your ascendant, you take advantage of that, because Uranus then is going to move into your first house, which is you. It's your physical body. It's your personality. It is the most personal point in the chart. And yes, it is you being you. Maybe being a little rebellious. And if you are rebellious naturally because of your birth chart, wow, it's a double whammy. And I don't believe in squelching aspects. If that's what's going on in your chart, get on your Harley and ride. Go for it. Do it. So this is you being totally liberated with Uranus in your first house. Okay. Then Uranus moves into your second house. And this is a very interesting placement for it, because the second house is the house of money and values and possessions. Now, you might say, well, does that mean I'm going to suddenly and unexpectedly come into a fortune? I don't know. Uranus can shake things up, and so you might find an unexpected situation in your finances that you have to take care of. But what Uranus does is it liberates you. Now, when I say it liberates you in your second house of money, that does not mean you're going to sell your house and move into a cardboard box under a bridge. That's not going to happen. But what it's going to do is set you free from the concerns about money that you may have had. It also indicates a time when you can be freelance in the way in which you earn your money, just by sitting in that house, which it does for a long time. Now, as Uranus moves into your third house, that's your mind, your conscious mind, you become more psychic, you blurt things out very impulsively, and if you're prone to do that anyway in your birth chart, look out. It means you may not have a filter on what you say. You certainly won't have one on what you think, and that's okay. It's all right to think it, but sometimes after you've said it, you think, whoops, how can I take that back? Well, you can't unring a bell. So just hold that thought. But Uranus in the third house, you come up with great ideas, unique ideas, ideas that are probably ahead of your time. And that this means that people don't understand what you're talking about. Let it be okay with you. Okay, Uranus in your fourth house. Now, when Uranus crosses this fourth house cusp, which is the IC, or in some cases the nadir, the bottom of the chart, the cusp is the strongest point in the house. Fourth house deals with home, family, and real estate. And this is you liberating yourself from family members or being liberated. You might want to move, and it'll happen suddenly and unexpectedly because that's how Uranus works. You wake up one morning and say, let's sell the farm, we're moving into the city, or vice versa. And so with Uranus in your fourth house, your whole family is unpredictable. And if they're unpredictable by nature, double whammy, right? Okay, as Uranus moves into your fifth house, the fifth house is fun and games. This is you wanting to really kick up your heels and be liberated, even if you've been very restricted your whole life. With Uranus in your fifth house, you wake up and say, you know what? It's time to have fun. And I'm tired of being bound and restricted by the rules and regulations that I've been living under. And this does not make you necessarily a wild maniac, but it does liberate you from restriction, so you'll have fun. The fifth house is also your kids. Yeah, they're probably going to rebel. But what you can do is release yourself from the tie that you have to them that may be restricting you. Maybe your children are in their 30s and 40s and are still demanding your attention, your money, your time, etc. With Uranus in that fifth house, you say, getting on my Harley and hitting the road, riding off into the sunset. And my suggestion is do it. Now, Uranus moving into your sixth house. This is a very interesting place because your sixth house is your work. And so you're going to want to break free. You're going to want to be more independent. If you have any inclination to pursue a more metaphysical or psychic pursuit, this would be the time to do it. And remember, Uranus is going to be there for several years. So you have plenty of time in which to do it. Uranus in your seventh house. Wow. As it crosses the cusp of your seventh house, your relationships can undergo a big change. The close relationships that you have can undergo a very large change. You will be liberated from them on some level. I'm not hiding anything. I don't mean it's a terrible thing. I mean, they come into their own. They will be acting unpredictably. If you are married to somebody who has been following the straight and narrow for a while and pursuing money and whatever, and all of a sudden he or she just becomes a person you don't even know, impatient, impulsive, rebellious, totally not the person you married. That may be due to Uranus on the seventh cusp. And as it sits in your seventh house, which it will for a while, you will attract very unique people to you. You will want to meet different kinds of people. And because of that, and it's not even a conscious thing, you just want it subconsciously, you will bring those unique people to you. And in your one-on-one relationships, people are going to see you as very rebellious, very different, very liberated. And they'll say to you, what have you done? You've liberated yourself. As Uranus moves into your eighth house, Wow. This is the psychic area of the chart. So with Uranus in your 8th house, you are probably more and more interested in astrology and metaphysical sciences. Any mutual finances that you have can undergo a big change, a liberating change. And listen very clearly, very closely to the psychic input that you get, because that's Uranus opening up the area of transformation on its deepest level. Uranus in the 9th house, very, very interesting, because Uranus in the 9th says, I want to spread my wings and soar. This is the house of long trips. It's your philosophy of life. And very often when you have Uranus in your 9th house of traditionally, that's the house of religion. It's your higher mind. What it means is that you are ready to bust loose and really explore unknown topics. Uranus in the 10th house says you are ready to bust loose from your career, especially when it sits right there at the top of your chart. The whole world will say, my, what's come over you? You can change your career. There can be changes in your relationships with people in authority like your parents, and you are free to do it your way. I love this. Uranus rules computers and technology too, by the way. So very, very interesting. Uranus in the 11th house, it's in its natural house, and so you become a more humanitarian individual. Your friendships undergo a change. You become more aware of the group that you're involved in, the groups that you're involved in, and yeah, you're going to be rebellious as a friend in those groups. Get ready, it's awesome. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Uranus in the 12th house. This is when you want to pull back, and there's a need for freedom, there's a need for liberation, there's a need to rebel. If that occurs, you will not act on it. Well, it will occur, but you will not act on it publicly. This is the area of privacy. Uranus is the psychic planet. The 12th house is the spirit plane, and you are going to be getting visions, ideas, insights, psychic awareness that you may or may not have ever had before. So, when we look at Uranus, we're talking about the great liberator. Now, when I come back, we're going to talk about the planet Neptune. Neptune is our idealist, our dreamer, and I really need smoke coming through the room now and soft music, because that's what Neptune is. Uranus is brick crashing through a plate glass window. Now we're going to talk about Neptune. So when we come back, we will talk about your dream, your escape. And with Neptune, I always say, dream a little dream with me. Hey everybody, we're back. And I hope you've got your chart in front of you with your own transits so that you can see how to interpret them. Now, for those of you who study astrology, you know that what I'm putting up here on the board are the conjunctions and the house placements of the transits. There's a lot more involved to a forecast. But because my mantra is conjunctions tell the tale, whenever we have a conjunction, meaning a planet on top of another planet, that's really huge. I've also noticed over the almost 50 years that I've been in astrology that the house placement is stronger than the sign placement and even stronger than the aspects to the other planets. So this is why I'm focusing on the strongest emphasis that anybody can understand in their own chart. I'm not making light of the other aspects, but conjunctions. However, the house placement is where it starts for me. And if you're an astrology student or an astrologer, if you have any questions, detailed questions, please feel free to contact me on my website, MaxineTaylor.com. I'll be glad to answer your questions. Okay, now, we're going to talk about the planet Neptune. And when I say Neptune, I mean nebulous, nefarious Neptune. Neptune rules smoke, it rules nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, it rules movies, it rules our dreams, it rules the spirit plane. And it doesn't slam into things like Uranus did last time. I forgot, I don't have it written up here anymore, but when Uranus touches a planet or an angle, it just explodes it. Neptune, like smoke, wafts over it very, very gently, very smoothly. You don't even know it's there until some time has passed. And that's why I call it nebulous, nefarious Neptune. Now, because Neptune rules our dream, it rules our escapes. What are the escapes? Nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, make-believe, drugs, whatever it is. If you escape into books, that's Neptune. If you escape into food, that's Neptune. But Neptune is divine inspiration. Wherever it is, it can be absolutely spiritual inspiration, but it confuses, it obfuscates wherever it is. And that's why if you're around somebody who has a very strong Neptune in their birth chart, you're going to get spacey if you're intuitive. You're going to feel confused. That's because they are. Neptune always hears a distant melody, like it's the sign that it rules, Pisces. And so around Neptune, Neptunian people or Neptune very strongly in your chart, you're going to just be real cool and real calm and real soothed. It's very nice. So let's talk about it. Okay, when Neptune sits in its own house, which is the 12th house, it triggers your desire for solitude and privacy. How does this work in your everyday life? Do you have a deck on the back of your house? Is it surrounded by trees? With Neptune in your 12th house, you are not going to want to be involved in the ongoing clatter of life. You're going to want to sit on your deck, read a book, sip a cup of tea, and just let your imagination go. Neptune, remember, has a very long cycle. So, it's a 165-year cycle. And what this means then is it's going to be in your chart, in the same place in your chart, for years. And as it touches the angles, that's when there is a softening. So let me illustrate it. Again, Neptune in your 12th, go away world. I hear a distant melody. Let me just listen to it. As it moves toward the ascendant, remember the ascendant is the physical body. You personally, that's you, the ascendant, are going to be gentler, spacier, more easygoing. If you're a spiritual person, I would imagine that you will be at the peak of your spiritual expression. And so when Neptune sits here, the old you, even the ego-centered you, can just gently melt away. Now, Neptune can be very dramatic in its own way because it rules movies, right? It rules make-believe. And I've seen people with strong Neptune become very dramatic in what they do. Think of your average Piscean. They're very dramatic people. They sense things. They feel things deeply. Okay, Neptune on the ascendant. You are into make-believe, costumes, new clothes of a different style, color, etc. So it's the very gentle washing away of the old you and the slow but sure evolution of the new you. Okay, as Neptune then moves into your second house. Second house is money. You might say, oh my God, am I going to lose all my money? Probably not. What I have found with Neptune is that if you are aware of the positive manifestation of Neptune, it's awesome. And what is that positive manifestation? The fulfillment of your dream. So, can Neptune in the second house wash away or dissolve money? Yeah, because you're non-materialistic. You don't care about the money the way you did before. You are more giving, more generous. I did a chart many years ago on a beautiful lady who had lots of second house planets in Pisces. And when those planets were triggered, what she did was she was able to create a business, make a great deal of money, and typical service-centered Pisces, she gave the business away to a relative. She did it again, created another business, and gave it away. And it was not only that Neptune was transiting her second house, but because she had so many planets in her second house in Pisces that she was able to create money, and she was naturally a giver. So with Neptune in your second house, you can fulfill your money dream. Is that cool or what? Neptune in your third house. This is really lovely. Neptune in your third house, it can confuse you. It rules. The third house is your conscious mind, and you'll be divinely inspired, but you may not be able to express your words the way you would like to. It's almost as if your lips aren't working as a team. Neptune senses the big picture, but putting it into concrete terminology can be a little bit frustrating. Write your book, do your video. This is the time to express your dream. Now, as Neptune moves toward that fourth house of home, family, and real estate, there can be a dissolving of something related to home and family. If there's been a problem, a lifelong problem with your family, Neptune can dissolve it. It can also dissolve the home itself. And what you can do is you can build your dream home. Neptune will be in that fourth house for many years, and so you'll be able to do that easily. Neptune in the fifth house. Oh my goodness. Fifth house is fun and games. It's movies, it's the theater, it's sports, it's anything that's fun. Okay? So with Neptune there, you're ready to have all kinds of delicious fun, and with children as well. Neptune in the sixth house. You want to serve in your work, and you'll find probably that you are creating the ability to put your dream job into operation. But first, the old job has to dissolve. Makes sense, right? Okay. When Neptune crosses that seventh cusp, your relationships can very gently move on, and you can create that dream person in your life. Up to you. Remember, you create it your way by what you choose. You really do have free will. You want to read the fine print in all documents because the other people in your life might not always be on the money. Neptune in the eighth, you can put some mutual financial plan into operation. And since the eighth house is the psychic realm and Neptune is the spirit realm, your intuition, your divine guidance is wonderful. Neptune in the ninth, your whole belief system becomes more spiritual, more universal, more giving. It's quite beautiful. And Neptune, when it sits on your midheaven, the top of the chart, your career, you can let go of your career on some level if it hasn't been working, and put your dream into operation in your career. Remember, the dissolving comes first, and then you put your dream into operation. And with Neptune in your 10th house, the whole world sees you differently. It's very, very interesting. They see you the way they want to see you, and you are larger than life. You are, in essence, a profound leader. Neptune in the 11th. Wow. You adore your friends. They are your haven, your escape. You are very spiritual when it comes to the groups that you're involved in, somewhat idealistic perhaps. But what this says is that you can put your dream into operation and create the most wonderful group of friends ever. And then, once again, Neptune moves into your 12th house, and you just want to pull back and retreat. Now, you're not going to be experiencing Neptune going through all the houses because it takes so long for it to go around the zodiac. But wherever it is in your chart now, it will probably stay there for some time. And knowing that, use it to create your dream. Now, next time we get together, we're going to talk about Pluto, the planet of transformation. It's control or transformation. It's one or the other. Pluto represents the phoenix rising on its own ashes, so it is symbolic death and rebirth. Very powerful planet. We're also going to talk about eclipses. I am a big eclipse watcher. I love eclipses, and you'll understand why when I explain them to you. So, keep in mind that with the heavy planets, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and then Pluto, we are talking about the planets that bring about the greatest change in our lives. Next week again, we'll talk about the eclipses, and then I'm going to use some charts of well-known people, and I'm going to show you how to combine all of this with their birth chart. Speaking of birth chart, if you don't have a copy of yours, MaxineTaylor.com, I will send it to you. See you next time.